Hey fellow animators, I'm Miloš Černý, and today we are going to take a look at the topic many of you have requested. How to build up a CAD rig the way to be compatible with current game engines, like Unreal, Unity and so on. Let's take a look. I will use the same model and rig of this low poly wolf I used in previous video also. It is free to download for my Patreon supporters. I will be occasionally releasing content exclusively for my Patreons to express my appreciation and gratitude towards them. So the big part of this rig is done in a standard way, nothing special about it. You can watch several other videos on my channel to see how to build a CAD rig. However, the one and only difference is this bone here, which is a root bone. To explain why this is important, we first have to understand how game engines work with character rigs. In CAD, the triangle below the rig is just a helper object. It is not a root bone and it is not being exported with the rest of the animation. This means that in CAD, the root of whole rig is the first bone, which is the parent of every other bone. In our case, the pelvis. This works fine for animating in animation softwares like 3ds Max, because there isn't any particular reason for having additional bone as root. However, for game engines there is. Most of the game engines usually need a bone above all the rest, for different features. Bone commonly named as root. For example, collision mesh is usually tied with the root bone. Features like root motion or even general position of the character is driven by root bone. So what this means for us is that we need a bone above pelvis in the hierarchy. Let's create an additional bone for pelvis. Name it root and zero it out. But now it will be a child of the pelvis and driven by pelvis, which we don't want. We need it to be above the pelvis in hierarchy. So link the pelvis to it, and if it moves, zero it out again. Now if you create an animation layer and move the root bone, you see the pelvis is linked to it and moves with it. But actually this is not exactly what we need. You still want to be able to animate the root bone separately, in case it needs to be animated. Imagine you have animated some start run. Don't mind this actual animation, it's a clip loaded from a different rig and just for this presentation purpose. But here you can see the problem. At frame 0 the root bone is placed fine, but at the last frame we need it to be below the wolf. But if we try to animate it now, it will of course move the pelvis as well. This means you would have to always animate pelvis bone with root bone as an effector, which is wrong. The correct way how to set this up is actually very simple. CAD gives you an option to disable inheriting of parameters from its parent. If we disable them for the pelvis bone, you can see we can now animate the root bone separately and pelvis stays as it was. So basically this is all there is to it for setting up CAD rig for game engines. Just create a root bone, link pelvis to it and disable its inheriting of parameters. However, we are not done with the video yet, because this setup creates another issue, and that is with the CAD's motion layers, or procedural animation if you will. If we create a new motion layer now, this will happen. You can see that the root bone took the animation of pelvis and pelvis is not moving. This is because we rearranged the hierarchy and CAD's motion layers consider the first bone as pelvis. This means that motion layers would be unusable with this setup, which would be a terrible shame because procedural animation is one of the key advantages of CAD over different animation systems. If we would try to re-enable the inheritance just for this animation, it wouldn't work either. The only solution I came up with is to delete the root bone when using motion layers. Animate the cycle you want. Let's say this would be it. Collapse the layer, which means that it bakes everything you have in the layer stack into one absolute layer. Now save just this layer as a clip. And load it on the rig where you still have the root bone. And it will work fine. This is a bit of a nuisance for sure, and you will have to keep more max files on your hard drive because of this, but in my workflow for example, I keep animation separated in different files anyways, so this doesn't affect me at all. But anyway, you will encounter this problem only with motion layers, and you can still use them this way. I have looked around the internet quite a bit, and a lot of workarounds I have found for this were even worse or harder to set up than this one. There actually aren't a lot of information about CAD anywhere, and a lot of stuff I do, I realize how to do by myself, but I have tested this and it works fine. So that's it. You can of course change the shape of the root bone to whatever you like, for example to an arrow like I did here. I hope you enjoyed this video, it was a topic I was asked a lot about. If you would like to see more stuff like this, support me on Patreon or with any other way you would prefer. And as always, share, like and leave some comments, I read them all. I am Miloš Černý and thank you for watching.